Hello. Hi, everybody. Um, I just got back from Gen Con, wearing my little black hand shirt to represent some of V5 love. Now that it seems we're coming to the end of V5, I guess. I think we still have some time. I think the earliest, from what I heard at Gen Con, I think the earliest. Hey there, good to see you. We were just chatting on Discord, so I appreciate you popping in. Uh, so yeah, for the earliest, from just the buzz I heard, don't know yet again. I always qualify this. I have no inside information. I am not part of the Paradox team or Renegade team or anything like that. I'm just a freelance writer. Um, so from what I heard from when I was at Gen Con, was that the earliest they were thinking of having V6 done seems to be next year around Gen Con time. Um, there's still some life left, I guess, in V5 and in the development schedule. Hopefully, I don't know if there are any new V5 books in the works. I would suspect not, but don't take that as a definitive answer in any way. Um, I know Courts of the Damned is basically just coming out. So that could potentially be the last, official Renegade V5 book, or even the last V5 book, period. Um, which personally I feel V5, unfortunately, even though technically it had a full lifespan, I think like 8 years, something like that. Um, it really, if you were to take all the books, all the like official books written for V5, and especially if you excluded all the Play Renegade stuff, which uh, it's a really short, small edition of Vampire. Like easily, I think only V20 technically is a smaller edition, and in some ways V20 was kind of almost like a fan project, really. So V5 is really our, I would say, kind of stilted in some ways, unfortunately. Hey there, praise Kane. Thanks for coming in the chat. So yeah, in some ways it's a little disappointing that we're getting such a short edition in a sense. We're getting an edition that does not have a lot of books, and the books themselves were kind of small in comparison to other gaming lines. I think towards the end, like a 200 pages. I don't think they were even hitting 200 pages for some of the last books and supplements. I think those later books, though, even though they're smaller, had a lot of more content to them, while the earlier books, which were bigger, other than the core book, had less content, or less stuff you could really use in a game on a regular basis. Like I'd say one of my only criticisms of like fluff or narrative heavy books like Camarilla or Anarch is that they're great books as like an artifact and as interesting way to kind of get into those concepts in the game, but they don't really actually give you a lot to build a character with. And I'm not just talking about like Mechanical Punch. So they're great books to kind of like for an ST or a player to really get into the Camry and the Anarchs, but not really a great book for how to build a Camry and Anarch character. I think Courts of the Dams may fulfill that, hopefully. I'm not quite sure. I haven't read the book or seen anything about it. I didn't write on it. Um, and yeah, that's a good point, Vocalize. Were differing dev teams, which is you know, usually you don't really see that in a game unless it's had a very long lifespan or it has several different lines. But V5, even though it kind of had like what I would call like kind of the bare minimum lifespan of an edition, it basically had 3 or 4 different development teams. You had the original White Wolf team, which basically didn't really survive the publishing of the core book, let alone Camarilla. Like, and basically, once Camarilla came out, they were basically out. Um, and I'll get back to that later, but it's kind of funny. And then you have the kind of interim period where that's basically where like where Chicago by Night gets developed, with really kind of almost like no oversight at all, and why it's such a much different book. And Chicago by Night, of course, is Onyx Path. So it gets developed, even though it hasn't been released yet. It's being developed in that interim time period before Modiphius even gets in vocal. So really, because I remember I kind of advised a bit on some stuff they were doing in Chicago by Night during that interim period. They didn't take any of my suggestions, but I feel that's probably one of the reasons that book kind of stands out from the rest of V5, because it kind of like ignores the beckoning, and has all these elders, and it hits some points that I think the V5 dev team originally did not want. I've of course complained about Oblivion a million times. I won't do that again, except just this once, which is, of course, Oblivion probably wouldn't exist if there was more oversight over that book. But then, right, Modiphius comes in, and they kind of take over, and we have the Modiphius team for a little while, and there is still kind of a confusion at Paradox and White Wolf, I would say, which really bottlenecks the process. But Modiphius puts out very few books. And then basically Renegade and Justin Achille come in. And there's kind of like then there are two more dev teams, basically. Because then there's the not even White Wolf, the Paradox team, with Justin and myself, and we put out Werewolf, and then then he put out 100 the Reckoning, and we worked on the official Sabbat book and other stuff, and those were all in-house, the Paradox team. And then the Renegade team, of course, was doing its own separate thing. So it was kind of a weird setup and addition. But even with all these kind of parallel teams working in a sense, they're just very few books. And I would say that was mostly due to the bottleneck at Paradox, because they had just a very small team working on top of the franchise, and a very small but detail oriented. So they wanted something very specific that was kind of true to the origins of V5, because they had one of the original developers of the V5 kind of writing on top of that. And I feel like before Justin got in, it was just a really slow process to get books. And in Justin's brief tenure, because I think he was only there for 2 years in Stockholm, we get this kind of explosion of books, and then once he leaves, I get a trickle. And then we have these last few books, I think, In Memoriam, Succubus Club, and Courts of the Dam, where you really see kind of the original V5 team return. Like, if you look at the credits of those last three books, In Memoriam, Succubus Club, Courts of the Dam, you will see that it's the team from basically the core book, Camry, and Anarch have returned. And that's kind of why those books seem very different than what we've come to see as V5 is developed. They're almost like a callback to the original V5 core books, and it's also why I feel those books kind of advance the meta plot in ways we just have not seen in V5 at all, and dig deep into meta plot elements that were kind of memory hold or not really dug into in V5, because that team was basically allowed to play with the setting in ways that other teams were not allowed to, which is what it is. So hopefully I'll still be playing V5. I'll still be writing for V5 as long as they let me. Unless they not kick V5 off the Storyteller's Vault, I'll do my best to stay making those books. The only thing that would probably stop me is I am currently interviewing for a position. I'm on my third round of interviews for a position with a pretty big role-playing game company, which would be a very exciting change for me in a lot of different ways. Thank you very much. We'll see if it happens. It's not the first time I've interviewed with them, so we'll see if it happens. But I think this position is probably the best fit I've ever interviewed for, so we'll see. So if I end up getting that job, which hopefully I'll know in a month or so, then yes, I would not be writing community content because I would be expressly forbidden from doing so. But assuming things go in the RPG industry as they usually do, um, and a white guy gets the job, then I'll still be making community content. So thoughts and prayers any direction you like for that one. So I just got back from Gen Con. I'm done. That's all my personal news and whatnot. I just got back from Gen Con, and obviously V6 was the big thing there. I did not play test it. I saw it play test. I talked to playtesters. I talked to DMs who ran the game. And of course, I talked to some people on the development team or whatnot, though I didn't really pick their brain about V6 particularly. I just want to get a sense of them and meet them on a personal level and see what they were all about. And about the team itself, I have really good vibes and feelings. I got a chance to meet Diago, and he comes from like the Brazilian WoD community, which I'm also personally invested in myself. I have a lot of friends who play World of Darkness Vampire who come from that community, and in the past I've actually tried to create a Portuguese translation of the Black Hand playing the Sabbat, using talent from that community, paying them what I could, but it was just an endeavor far beyond my capabilities as a lone person, and I really wasn't able to put together a translation team that could tackle the whole book. Though I was put in touch by someone on the 7th Sea team, and they recommended a Portuguese translator to me who they said was very good, and loves World of Darkness content as well. So hopefully I can actually take another crack at that, time and cost permitting. But in any case, as I was saying, Diago seems very committed to Vampire, the World of Darkness, and the vibe I got off of him as the creator seemed very good. And people, and more importantly than just my vibe, is that people I trust in the industry that are, I would say, are more plugged into the indie space than the World of Darkness space. Though one of them I know is a huge World of Darkness Vampire Sabbat head, actually, who like ran like huge Vampire LARPs and shit when they were younger. So actually, from his opinion, I definitely got a very good vibe and feeling and good recommendations on him. So, that's good. That you don't have to be like a good person or dedicated to the IP to make a good game. But I definitely think it helps if you like the game you're writing for. I've definitely seen what happens when you don't like the game you're writing for, and it can have some strange results here and there. I won't go into the details there because that's a little too gossipy, even for me. But anyway, V6, it looked really interesting. It was way different than anything I was expecting, honestly. But on some level, it makes sense. The people creating this come from like the kind of indie space, what some people call rules light or narrative space. Kind of the a lot of people are throwing around, D&D and Powered by the Apocalypse and Daggerheart and all that. I really couldn't say. I've actually never played Daggerheart. I played a lot of Powered by the Apocalypse. I played a lot of D&D. This doesn't really look like D&D to me. I see some Power of the Apocalypse elements in it, like certain systems and stuff. But it also is definitely not a Powered by the Apocalypse game, I would say, or really even like Powered by the Apocalypse adjacent. I like the idea that they're trying to put in these like narrative systems into the game. I like that a lot. I'm not quite sure if this hits where they wanted to hit for the systems that are in there. And I can go through and break down some of the stuff I saw. I actually have the alpha, players packet here. This is public. It's on Drive-Thru RPG. I'm not revealing any proprietary content in any way. This is just the public playtest packet that you can get on Drive-Thru or Demiplane. I like the new logo. I think the new logo is fine. I like that it's got like kind of like a fang stake thing in the middle there and all that. It's like sharp. That's fine. Like I even like the Requiem logo, though I think the Requiem logo is probably my least favorite vampire logo. Um, but this one's pretty good. I don't know. If, I really like that V5 logo. To be fair, so I think maybe the V5 logo edges this one out a little bit for me, but it's still a good logo, and it looks really good on in red and on a shirt. They had really good shirts. I'll try to show you one when I can. That the V6 shirts are fantastic. I'm biased because they have a Bradstreet picture on it again, and it's Lombok Ruthven from the Children of the Inquisition, who's like the signature Zemese character other than Dracula. But so like obviously I'm biased. I would love to have a Lombok Ruthven shirt. Um, or are you saying puppet strings? I haven't played Daggerheart, but the clans feel like the templates from PBTA, in my opinion. Also, things like the downtime activities reminded me of Blades, which uses PBTA. Well, yeah, I mean, I have written or partially written a mod to Blades in the Dark called Fangs in the Dark, which is basically a Vampire the Masquerade port of Blades in the Dark. So, like, I don't think that's original on my part. Like Blades, when the first time I read Blades, I was like, oh, I could run this as Vampire. You know, it would hit very specific vampire beats. It would be very much about like territory control, kind of like pack/coterie tactics, just the machinations against other packs and all that, and like kind of a city you're trying to like contort to your own will. Um, and so the most like Daggerheart for V6 playtest is the meta currency, drama and quickening, so on and so forth. Yeah, that's what I've heard as well. Right. So sticking with Blades and PBTA. So the clans didn't really feel like templates or playbooks to me. They really weren't that involved. Like even with the clan traits, which I'll get into a little bit. I wish I had more time. Maybe I'll have to make this a part 1 and a part 2. But they didn't really feel like fully fleshed out PBTA templates to me. To be honest, I may have preferred if they were PBTA templates, but not like if I was to make a Vampire the Masquerade powered by the Apocalypse game, I would make playbooks. The playbooks would not be the clans. They would be vampiric archetypes of different kinds. I'm not going to brainstorm what those would be right now, but they would be different vampiric archetypes of different kinds. I would have a bunch of them. Maybe, like Colt does, which has like, I think like 15 or 13 playbooks. Out of a lot of them, they wouldn't be overly complex. You could play any clan as any playbook. And then the clans maybe would add some unique ability or flavor or move to the playbook. And so you could kind of mix and match. And maybe the sects would also add a special move to the playbook. So you'd basically pick, playbook, archetype, your clan, and your sect, or if you don't have a sect, and maybe that would kind of flesh out your character. That's just off the top of my head. I'm sure if I had a team or something, I could think of something different. So like the clans, I feel are kind of a bad way to make a playbook or template, and these aren't playbooks or templates. The clans definitely are kind of your main entree into character creation. Like it's very obvious. They're like, pick your clan, and that's kind of your major decision when it comes to making your character. Which I don't really have a big problem with. I just feel that if you're going to do it that way, you're probably going to pigeonhole the clans more than you did in V5 or even in previous editions, right? Like, if you want to play the Bruiser, then you're kind of obviously going to play the Bruja. Like, not picking Bruja and being like the punch guy is going to dramatically mess with your power fantasy of punching people. If you want to be like the dominator social manipulation guy, probably Ventru. If you want to be the seductive, social influencer on the nicer tip, Toreador, right? And it seems the clans are really very good at those specific things, and that it would be very difficult for other clans to match them. So that I think is something I probably wouldn't have done. But yet again, this is an alpha playtest, and so give them read the packets, and you can give them feedback. You can go. I think you can go to Demiplane, in the same place you get the packets. You can give them feedback. I didn't have to sign up to give feedback to Demiplane. So if you're worried about signing up to Demiplane and giving them information, at least for me, I clicked a link that took me right there. So hopefully that's the front-facing page of it. So I would give them as much feedback as you can. Don't be a dick. Making games is hard. Right. It's a Google form, so only need a Google account. Making games is hard. Don't be a dick. Give them your honest opinion. Try to use like words that aren't charged, if you can. You don't have to use neutral language. Like let them know your feelings. But I would just go out of your way not to be a dick and to give them like constructive feedback and criticism and what you liked and what you didn't like. And it is a Google form. It can be a little bit of a trek to get through. Like it's a lot. It's a lot. And so on. Yeah. Like I agree exactly. Vocalize. There's a person on the other end of those playtest surveys. Someone's gonna have to read them. It's not gonna be AI reading them probably. Hopefully, someone's gonna have to read them, and someone's gonna go through, and someone's hopefully gonna have to internalize them. And so you want to make it as digestible for them as possible. And like throwing bricks at them is not going to do that. So if you actually want V6 to be more like you want it to be, give them the feedback. And as I was saying, it's a bit of a slog. I haven't filled out a form yet myself because I haven't really formed a full opinion on V6 yet. But looking through the form, like there are all these multiple choice questions that I feel didn't really hit what I wanted to. But at the end, there's a other comment section that I feel people get a lot of use out of. So do your best with the multiple choice section to get your feelings and point across within those constraints, and then in the other box, fill that out with what you want. So with the time I have, I'm going to go through some of the things I saw in the V6 playtest packets that kind of jumped out to me. So on a kind of lore end. You've got The Beckoning, Ministry, Hakata, and Oblivion, right? Oh, and of course Sabbat, right? I mean, of course. So just to start with the last thing first, the Sabbat. So Sabbat is just upfront playable again, which I think is just a smart move. For V5, it was in some ways kind of once bitten, twice shy. That caused Sabbat to become unplayable. I think there was some internal kind of, like, I won't say prejudice, but there was definitely people who were making decisions who really didn't have a deep understanding of the Sabbat, or how to play Sabbat, or had their own kind of viewpoints on Sabbat that were immutable, and that really led to Sabbat being shortchanged in V5, unfortunately. I think the official Sabbat book is good. I don't think it's what players wanted, and of course that's why I wrote the Black Hand playing the Sabbat, because that's what I wanted. And thankfully, a lot of players and STs wanted that too. And that's why it's, the best-selling V5 community content book on the vault still, as far as I know. And I'm pretty sure the only platinum V5 book that's community content and wasn't published by an actual third party like Onyx Path or something. If you don't include the free books. I don't know if free books get medals. But obviously there was a hunger and thirst for that. People like to play Sabbat. As I once told Jason Carl, I think in like 2018, before the V5 core book came out, when we like ran into each other in LA, I was like, I personally felt that Sabbat really kept the game alive on some level. Like there was like a 10-year period where Vampire, just like the Masquerade, ceased to exist. We had Requiem, obviously, and the IP was with CCP, and there were just no new books really being produced. And even Chronicles of Darkness was, I won't say limping along. I wrote some of those books for Onyx Path and such. So I wouldn't say it was limping along, but it definitely didn't have the support it once had. Your friendly local gaming store didn't have the books because they weren't being physically printed. Um, you would only get the books through Kickstarter as print on demands. Um, so I remember some gaming stores I would go to. I went to one gaming store in LA and they asked me what I was playing. Um, and I forget what I said it was. Uh, and I guess just because I was dressed in all black, they were like, oh, good, because we don't let people play Vampire here. They literally told me you're not allowed to play Vampire the Masquerade or Vampire the Requiem or any World of Darkness game in their free gaming section because they don't have books to sell from those companies. And so they felt like, okay, if those companies are going to say fuck us, then we're going to say fuck you. So they literally told me you can't play that game. And literally the guy looked at me, saw I was dressed in all black, and was like, what game are you playing? Are you going to play Vampire back there? It's like, you're not allowed to play Vampire. You don't let us sell Vampire books. We don't let you play Vampire games. So I feel that all the games I played during that kind of dark period of Vampire the Masquerade were Sabbat games. They were Sabbat LARPs. They were Sabbat tabletop games. That's what we played, because those were the players who were the most hardcore. I mean, no shade if you don't play Sabbat, but that was just the facts. I'm an old head. Those are just the facts back in those days. Is that it was the Sabbat players who kept Masquerade alive. We didn't play fucking Camarilla, and that was that. And so the idea that you wouldn't want to play Sabbat in V5 was just kind of crazy and stupid. And personally, I felt just a completely misreading of the community and the Sabbat. So the fact that Sabbat is back in V6, I think is great. But to be fair, they were never really gone in V5. Like, everybody who wants to play Sabbat, who's interested in playing Sabbat, they have everything they need to play Sabbat in V5. I wrote it. I put it there. You can play it. I'm very obnoxious about promoting it, and I'm not shy about promoting it. Yeah, that's a good point, Vocalize. I just hope that the V6 Sabbat are distinct enough from Camarilla without stepping on the toes of the Anarchs. I mean, I agree completely. I think, one thing I kind of do like about V5 Sabbat is that I don't mind saying I in this case, was able to shape it, even in the official book, in a way that I felt was fantastic, and I loved it, and it was very distinct from revised. I did my best to push it away from the hypocrisy angle that was really pushed in revised Vampire, which was this whole, the Sabbat and Camarilla are the same. They're two sides of the same coin. The Sabbat are just like lying to you about freedom. It's elder controlled, and they have all these hierarchies and popes and shit. So it's basically just the Camarilla, but they have cooler outfits. That sucked. Okay, no, I didn't like that. Maybe you like that. Okay, good for you. You can play that. I thought it sucked. So when V5, I really went out of my way to basically throw away all that hypocrisy stuff. And funny enough, by making the Sabbat kind of an antagonist sect, even in the official book, that helped me basically get rid of that. It's like, oh yeah, it's not a hypocrisy. They're totally different. Like, they're nothing like the Camarilla, because the Camarilla is playable, right? And so in my unofficial book, The Black Hand, I was able to run with that, kind of the seeds I planted in the official book, to grow something which was more like the culty Sabbat that the V5 book has. Yeah, for V6, I don't know. I hope that they go with the more culty, visceral Sabbat that we had in like second edition. Like, I have some hope there. We have Eternal Whispers still coming out, which is V5 based, kind of funny. It may be the very last V5 content we get even. But yeah, Eternal Whispers, V5 based, set in Montreal, a very Sabbat heavy game. That is going to set the standard of what the Sabbat is like, which is why I pester that fucking team from the shadows. But I kid. The Flyos guys are great. I've talked to the guys we're running on Eternal Whispers. They don't need any help from me. Okay, that's all I can say. They really seem to know what they're doing. I have very high hopes for that game. I'm sorry if that's gonna fuck it up that I have high hopes for that game. but everything I've heard and seen has been everything I've wanted to hear and everything I wanted to see. So Eternal Whispers, that's going to set the standard for the Sabbat, and that is based on Montreal by Night, which is literally the book I took inspiration from when writing the Sabbat for V5. So, I think everyone knows my opinion about Lucian Solban. I think he's a fucking genius. And I wish he still wrote for Vampire the Masquerade or for any fucking RPG. His talents are being put to good use by Ubisoft, I'm sure. But I miss him in the RPG space. But that being said, I think the Sabbat, there's a very good chance that Eternal Whisper is going to set the dynamic of what people's expectations are of Sabbat. And the facts is that those kind of mental frameworks of things are what set the standard for writers, right? So, like, you can read through the books about, like, say, the Beckoning, right? Like, you read through the core book about the Beckoning, the Camarilla book for the Beckoning. You can look through, well, you guys can't, but you could read through the, the meta documents about what the Beckoning was about, right? That writers should read, and the initial stuff, right? And that should give you how you should write about the Beckoning, right? But that's not what happens. What happens is that players, and therefore future writers for the game, internalize what that concept is about. Oh, the Beckoning is when all the elders leave, right? The Beckoning is because the Methuselahs are calling you to the Middle East. Like, all that stuff gets internalized in your mind as a player through the community and through play, like the zeitgeist, as they say. And so it doesn't even fucking matter what the meta documents say. It doesn't fucking matter what the books say in print, right? Those writers start to write about the Beckoning like that. And so you get books later down in the line which are basically putting forward the Beckoning as, a war in the Middle East because the elders are calling you, even though we've explicitly rewritten that in the books, and in the meta document it never really said that. So it was just a concept that became more powerful than what was written in the books or in the design Bible that you're supposed to get as a writer. And so I feel that chances are the same thing will happen with the Sabbat. Whatever they write the Sabbat is like in the V5 core book or the V5 official Sabbat book or whatever will be overtaken by the play in the community and the zeitgeist, and future writers on the line will be informed by that, right? They're not going to be informed by, like, the Bible on that content. So I have high hopes for Eternal Whispers. I think the Sabbat might be more in line with my preference, and not this kind of like hokey, backwards Catholic Camarilla. Next thing is Ministry. The Ministry seems to be way more follower of Set focused now. Like, they have like snake powers again and stuff like that. So I was kind of like, why are they called Ministry then? Shouldn't you just call them followers of Set again? Like, why keep that change? I suspect that's because people had gotten used to playing Ministry, and I think perhaps the dev team play Ministry vampires here and there, so they've just gotten, like, they think of it as the Ministry now. Like, the followers of Set name has kind of fallen off for them. That would be my guess, because it just seems so incongruous that they're still called Ministry. But if you look at it, they think they have 3 powers, which are just, snake stuff. Hakata looks like they're gone. The word Hakata doesn't even, as far as I could tell, didn't even appear in the playtest documents. There's Giovanni again. I'm fine with that. In my Camarilla book I'm working on, I'm basically, bringing the Giovanni back myself, literally as a playable clan as the Giovanni, so that's perfectly fine with me. If I had to guess, I'd say it's so you can tie the serpent theme to corruption instead of just ancient Egyptian stuff. Yeah, that's possible. Though corruption, I assume they'll find a better name for it than that, I hope. But the corruption power is basically the thaumaturgical path of corruption, kind of turned into a discipline. So I guess I could see that. That's possible. The kind of serpent in the garden kind of concept. that's maybe a little too Catholic for me, even. One of my main gripes with Requiem actually is that it went really Catholic with it with Vampire. It just went like, with these so many kind of Catholic themes that I felt it was a bit thick and heavy, and kind of made me feel like this really wasn't the game for me when it first appeared, Vampire the Requiem. So I don't know if I would be that into like a serpent of in the garden kind of allegory kind of stuff. I feel that goes beyond kind of even like ancient myth biblical references for me, but who knows? And it kind of makes the Setites in my eye kind of like a very different creature. Like if the Setites are kind of moving away from Egyptian stuff or whatever, or they're kind of like Middle Eastern flavoring to kind of serpent in the garden flavoring, I don't think I'd like that personally. I don't like the name Giovanni. It wouldn't have been an Italian surname at the time they were brought into the Cappadocians. Yeah, I mean, I get it. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of followers of Set. I don't really like Assamites. I don't like Banu Hakim. I think there's a lot of name choices that are not good. Not a big fan of Toreador. I know some people have a problem with Bruja, because it's basically like, appropriating the name of, a cunning woman or wise person from a certain culture, and you're making them these like violent vampires. So I get it completely. That Giovanni is kind of a misnomer. Right, La Sombra, obviously, that's really on the nose. What can you do? Well, Assamite. I mean, how more on the nose could you be than that, for real? I mean, it has nothing to do with anything. It's not even an alliteration of the Arabic word for like assassin, really. And Assam has nothing to do with them either. So, I guess they kind of like repurposed it as the name, as the moniker of their antediluvian. Though now they call him Hakim, which is also a weird thing to call an ancient Middle Eastern vampire. Like the Hakim would have definitely not been a name in like Babylon or anything like that. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So I get it. Like you can take quibbles with the name Giovanni, it's fine. I prefer it to Cappadocian. Cappadocian was Turkey, so like that's a whole other problem right there. Also, Cappadocians, the clan, I feel was not design-wise, thematically. I'm not a huge fan of them because it was kind of yet again another kind of like nerd clan that got eaten. It's like, oh, the nerds got beat up by the jocks, right? Like that's a theme in Vampire the Masquerade that continues over and over again. It's like the nerd clan gets beat up by the jock clan. Like there's the Chad clan. And there's like I'm too old. I don't even know what the opposite of a Chad is, guys. So like there's the Chad clan and there's like, I don't know, the Simp clan. And the Chad clan eats the Simp clan every time. Haha. So, I mean, that's my only problem with kind of the Cappadocian Giovanni thing. I think Giovanni is fine. A virgin, thank you. Okay, so there's a Chad and the virgin. So you had the virgin Cappadocians, right? And then the Chad Giovanni. Right, yeah, it's based on incel humor, exactly. And World of Darkness unfortunately had real incel vibes coming from the writing team, who kind of saw themselves as like the jocks of the RPG world, right? They were the guys who like partied at cons, and they had like and girls played their game, So that's really how they saw themselves. So this kind of like jock Chad thing, like you can kind of see it all throughout the 90s of World of Darkness. So I really didn't like that vibe anyway. I also didn't appreciate that Giovanni kind of became almost slang for like mobster. I didn't think that really did them any justice. But I do like that it's kind of shorthand for Italian. I don't see that as a negative. I really like Italian vibes and culture. I don't know. I'm very impressed by Italians in Italy in general. It's not a very big place, but they have like kind of developed cultural, like human cultural items, artifacts that are, incredible. Like incredible art, incredible food, incredible cars, incredible clothing, incredible like shoes, incredible fashion. Like it's just kind of crazy. And it comes from a lot of different things. They're not like genetically superior or whatever, but they have just an incredible amount of cultural capital. And I think it's great to have Italian vampires. I think that's cool. And I think the fact that they're like, necromancers, and it kind of comes into this almost like that's where I think you can just pile on the weird Catholic shit, and I'm just gonna gobble that up, and I'm gonna think it's fantastic. I don't think it should permeate all of vampire. Um, but yeah, I think Giovanni. I'm perfectly fine with that name change. I like it. I like the Giovanni. I think as they're obviously, I'm not the only one. Revised vampire, maybe because the guy in charge was named Achille. Somebody had a thing for Italians. Obviously, Giovanni kind of became, in my opinion, kind of like a through line face of revised vampire. Like we had, 3-4 books of the Giovanni Chronicles, and the Giovanni was everywhere. I think there are like 3 or 4 different Giovanni clan books. One of them written by Achille himself, when like the line developer writes the clan book, and it's thick. It's kind of crazy. Like only the Sombra, I think, have more clan books, and that's just because they kept fucking them up. It was like Hulk movies. You'd get a new La Sombra clan book each time in hopes of fixing the last one, and they just fuck it up again. Though to be honest, the last La Sombra clan book is actually pretty good. But that's not the writer's fault. That's really just the La Sombra were just never really defined outside of we're in charge of the Sabbat. And shadows, kind of shadows. So they kept making them weirder and weirder. It's like, now they're pirates. Okay. So I'm happy with that. Oblivion, like what's going on there? Like they literally made necromancy its own power, but they kept the name Oblivion, and it's just the shadow powers from Obtenebration. That kind of drove me nuts. I would just change it back to Obtenebration, please. Oblivion is such a terrible shit name. I can't stand it. I know I said I wasn't going to complain about Oblivion again, but I'm going to complain about Oblivion again. It's a terrible name. It's really bad. It's off-putting. It does not fit the naming conventions of any other disciplines, but supposedly it's one of the oldest disciplines. Like, I can't fucking stand it. So I hope they get rid of the name Oblivion. I like the fact that they took necromancy out of the shadow powers. Please. Like, they never really belong together. You can have shadow powers that do necromantic things without combining the two powers. Like, that's perfectly fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. Lots of disciplines kind of step on each other's toes. As long as it's limited and at the edges, I think that's fine. Right? Like, look at blood sorcery. Blood sorcery literally steps on the toes of every other fucking discipline in the game. It's like the Swiss Army knife of disciplines. At least when it was called thaumaturgy. I don't mind them still calling it blood sorcery. It will keep them from adapting Wraith. No, I don't think so. I don't think they're going to adapt Wraith. Like, the 2 games they picked were very notable. They picked for future 6th edition. They picked Mage. They picked Mage, and they picked Changeling the Dreaming. Which is a crazy choice in my opinion, and I like Changeling the Dreaming. I think the guy who wrote Changeling the Dreaming is fucking awesome. I actually just saw him at Gen Con. I didn't recognize him. He looked totally different than the last time I saw him, or I'm just going face blind. He was actually the first vampire LARP storyteller I ever had, Ian Lemke and Mike Tinney, actually, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, Mike and Ian were my first vampire LARP storytellers, like in AtlantaCon in like 1991 or 92. It's crazy to think about. Hey there, Fenris. Not much, just back from Gen Con, tired, babbling. I'm sure this stream is a lot more kind of frenetic than my usual streams, but that's okay. Staying positive, talking about V6 a little bit. Hopefully Oblivion will change back to Obtenebration. But yeah, they picked Mage and Changeling the Dreaming to adapt in V6. So I don't think Wraith is on the table for them for multiple reasons. It seems they want to stick with games that are what I guess are kind of like plug and play, like very easy to get new players into and kind of roll with the vibe. Um, Mage, I think they could have a lot of success with Mage using kind of some of the elements from this. Like if they're going for more powered by the apocalypse style stuff, as you said. Though I mean that's not really my opinion. I don't think it's very powered by the apocalypse, but let's say narrative game elements with some mechanical backing, I guess. But we'll see. Um, well, right. So there's supposedly going to be Hunter and Werewolf. For fifth edition may continue being developed on some level. I guess I suspect that is more of a contractual thing. Like perhaps there's certain contracts that need to run out before they can develop stuff. So we might not see Werewolf 6 in the schedule because contractually they might still have a license for Werewolf 5 with Renegade. And contractually they might still have license for Hunter 5 with Renegade, and they might not want to produce something in direct competition with their franchisee. And contractually they might not be allowed to. So, obviously, Changeling, Mage, those are things that they can develop without stepping on anybody's contractual toes. Wraith, 5th edition, technically, there are games out there for Wraith as it exists, so who knows what the contracts say about that. Changeling and Mage, untouched, virgin territory, they can do whatever they want. There are no licensees, franchisees who have any claim on that. While Wraith, they might step on some toes if they make some major changes to the setting that, could fuck with some sales of a game here and there. But that's just spitballing. White Wolf and Renegade are getting along all right. I'll suspect they'll slowly part. Well, I mean, I have no inside information. I have no idea how they're getting along behind the scenes or whatever. I am in this business. I am in this industry. There are certainly people I do not get along with on a personal level. There's certainly people I do not like. And there are people I really do like. And that doesn't matter when it comes to the business side of things. Like I'll work with the people I have to work with. And when it comes to community-facing things, I'm not going to badmouth anybody. I'm not going to shit-talk anybody. I will criticize like writing and mechanics and themes and design, but I'm not going to be like, this book sucks because this guy wrote it. Like, that's just beyond the pale. I would never do that, and I hope no one would ever do that to me, even if I did write some fucking shit. So I have no idea how they're getting along. I hope they are getting along well. Renegade, from what I know, the people they got to write on that Anne Rice Interview with the Vampire, full disclosure, not me. The people they got to write on the Interview with the Vampire thing is a really high level team of writers, right? Like they've got Rachel Wilkinson, who's heading the whole thing. And if you don't know Rachel's work, then you should. She wrote, like, I think 3 or 4 really great fucking Vampire the Masquerade adventures. She wrote, I think she was I think she was an editor on Dune with me when we won that fucking Ennie that's hanging up there. She was like our editor and our like Dune lore keeper, basically the person who's like in charge of knowing we weren't fucking up. So like that gold Ennie up there is as much hers as anybody else's on that team, even if she didn't technically write a word on the book. And she did Port Saga, which was the Vampire the Masquerade kind of serial, like radio serial. It was like a radio play. I think it's like 8 episodes long, and I think she did like 2 seasons of it or something for free. Right? She had to like kick in her own stuff, and like nobody helped her with that. That was like she basically made a whole community thing, which was an incredible addition to Vampire the Masquerade. So like she's not on the Vampire the Masquerade team, unfortunately, but she's at Renegade. They hired her. It was an incredibly smart hire. She worked on Gehenna War, obviously, which very smartly. They included material from the Black Hand playing the Sabbat in Gehenna War. So obviously this is, a very high level creative person. No, but all seriously, incredible person to be heading up the interview with the Vampire game. Right, they have Eloy Lasanta, who I just saw at Gen Con 2, who is a mechanical star. I met him at an Any Award ceremony, I think a year or two ago with like Magpie, and he was chopping it up with all the Magpie people on like mechanical shit. And if you don't know Magpie games, they're kind of like what I would call the gold standard of Powered by the Apocalypse games and stuff, as well as some other games, Bluebeard's Bride, Rapscallion, Urban Shadows. I can go on. Like, when it comes to Powered by the Apocalypse games, they kind of refute anybody's argument that Powered by the Apocalypse games are no good. I think they can do a lot more than Powered by the Apocalypse games, and I'm sure they will. They do the Root RPG, of course, and other stuff. So yeah, Eloy, he was, I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name right. I even said that to him. I was like, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. Right, so he was chopping up. So yeah, they had Rachel, they have Eloy, a friend of mine from Chaosium, Brian B.W. Holland, is also on there. He has stuff on the Storyteller's Vault for Vampire the Masquerade. He has like a adventure like set in Texas, which is very good. I think it's called like Lone Star, and he's written a ton for Chaosium. I think he might be a full-time employee for. He's a full-time employee for Chaosium. Yeah, that's a fact. But more importantly, as far as I'm concerned, he's a writer and a good writer, and he's written tons of adventures for Chaosium, Call of Cthulhu stuff, which are creepy and weird. I just ran. Well, I didn't run one, but I just saw one get ran by my partner. At Gen Con, and people had a blast. So the people they got to write that book are fantastic. And those are just the ones I could think of off the top of my head. I know I'm sure the people who are even better who I'm not thing. Oh, you're writing for it too, Fenris? That's great. Congratulations. Right. So yeah, yet another superstar. Another superstar writing on it. So yeah, they got a really great team together for that thing. That core book, I will never play in that universe. That's not really something I'm interested in playing in. But I'm gonna pick up that core book because I know it's gonna be well written and it's gonna have interesting stuff in there that I haven't thought of that I'm gonna steal from my Vampire the Masquerade games, and that's just a fact. And we'll see what kind of legs that's going to have beyond Interview with a Vampire and all that, because there are other, worlds in the Anne Rice thing. So yeah, so that might be a direct competitor for V6. I don't know. We'll see. But as far as like them getting along, I hope that's the case. But the business is the business. I think V6. Immortal Universe is the book, exactly. I think V6 could definitely, if V6 had a similar team to that, or if that was the V6 team, I think we would have seen a much different game, of course, and all that. But we'll see what this team does with it, and how those two games on some level grok. But that's a little off topic. So some of the stuff that I saw that I liked, I really liked. I liked Sire Types. I thought that was an interesting concept. I like the concept of life paths. I'm not quite sure I would have implemented it the way they did. I don't know if vampire jobs should be life paths. I'm not a pedantic person. Like, the thing I hate is like in a book where it's like, we don't say blood, we say vitae, right? I hate that shit. I hate it when an RPG book, basically, like, I love a glossary of terms. I love that. I love a glossary of terms where it's like, an antediluvian is this old motherfucker. What I hate is like, oh, we don't say have a good day when we're vampires. We say have a good night, or, may the darkness bless you, or some shit. Like, fuck off. Like, don't tell me, how I have to speak because I'm a vampire now. Okay, like I'll figure that out myself. That's called playing the game. It's called role playing. Like that's why I bought your fucking book. Like you don't got to tell me like what words I can use in a fucking paragraph when I'm playing a vampire, right? I hate that shit. I've had 3 books in my lifetime where that's been added to a book I worked on, and like always in the front, always like the first thing you see is this like pedantic bullshit. Either like you're playing the game wrong, you're using words wrong, that kind of thing. Like go fuck yourself. Uh, right. You mean tonight? Right. Exactly. Like fuck you. Like maybe I've only been a vampire a week, right? Okay. Like if you're gonna do that to me, like let my ST fuck with me in game, right? Like don't come out of the game on a meta level as some kind of authority to tell me how to talk, right? Like all I can say is fuck you. They're kindred. We don't. So all right. So that's a good example, right? Because that actually kind of talks about what I'm talking about. So I think kindred, right, is like a glossary item, and it's like kindred. It's like what vampires call each other when they're trying to be sneaky or they're old as fuck, right? Like so, if someone runs up to you and calls you kindred in game, that's a great role playing thing, right? You're like, oh, this guy is either a fucking old head, he's sucking up to old heads, or he thinks somebody is listening and like wants to keep it on the down low, right? Just like when someone rolls up to you and calls you a K-Knight, you got to do a little role playing fucking processing and be like, K-Knight, okay, is this guy just like a religious creep? Is he older than fucking dirt, like just got out of his sarcophagus? Or is this dude like fucking Sabat and is like kind of theologically hitting on me, right? Like you've got to do all this mental calculus. So that stuff is great, right? I think that stuff is great. But if on a meta level, like the author of the book or like the editor, I've gotten editor's notes on books too, which are hilarious. Or the editor is like, hey, player, Bob, I know you're playing Catherine of the Darkness, like, you know, Lector of Cappadocia, but we don't say vampire. We only say kindred. So while you're role-playing, remember, kindred, not vampire, okay? We're gonna deduct points. Like, we're gonna be a quiz later. Like, fuck that. I'm sorry. Like, fuck that. I remember in Belial's Brood, when we did Belial's Brood for Vampire the Requiem, which was a book they did not want us to write, but I guess we had enough clout that we basically let us write it. Because we basically got, like, everybody who was kind of considered, like, the heavy hitters of writing just, like, dark shit for Chronicles of Darkness. I don't remember. It was a whole bunch of guys, but it was definitely, I remember like George and like George Holoquist. He did Overlight, which is kind of funny that he did Overlight after as well. George, me, and like some other guys. The other guys are good too. I don't want to just, you know, think, but George and I just like have a really good repartee for really dark shit. So we got like all the like really dark shit guys to do the book. So they were kind of like, okay, we are fine. You can write it. You're like insist. But we got this like mile-long editor note, like it's the first thing you read in Belial's Brood, and it's the line developer of Vampire the Requiem, basically like basically the top boss that we could possibly have, who was basically telling the reader that he disowned the book, that he was like, I didn't want to write this book, like they made me, kind of shit, like, you know, don't judge us by this book, like this book is like really, you know, not the way I play this game personally. Like I would never, like he was clutching his pearls so tight they like burst out of his fist in both directions in this sidebar. It's totally crazy. I'd never seen anything like it before. It was almost like a big sticker that said "Don't buy this book" on it. It was nuts. But that book sold well. People love that book. That's like one of the few books where if I mention my name, people will actually recognize it. Actually, it's like, oh, you wrote Belial's Brood, like, which is kind of funny. I think it's a great fucking book. It did very well. To the point where they don't even have Blau's Brood. I think in Vampire the Requiem second edition. I guess they didn't think they could. I guess they didn't think they could follow us. After that, we closed the book on it. They retired the jersey after we wrote that book. So that's the stuff I don't like. What I do like, I like these little persnickety in-game terms like Kindred, awesome, Antediluvian, Amaranth, Diablerie, Otarchus, even all the little nicknames of the clans and shit. Like all that stuff you can play with in-game is great. Come at me from a, meta narrative level to tell me what words I can say. I'm gonna say go fuck yourself. Anyway, I really liked the sire types. I thought that was a great concept and good. I think I would have made them work with predator types. I don't think I would have replaced predator types completely or kind of made predator types just kind of like a way of saying hunting role. I wouldn't have done that. I think predator types were an innovation in V5 that were really good. I would have kept that somehow. Hunger dice, really, like V5's. That's like V5's major innovation is the hunger dice. Like hunger dice is something where people who don't play Vampire, who just write other games, so other people who design games, write games, that kind of hunger dice is something that they talk to me about. Like they're like, oh, I don't play Vampire the Masquerade, but Hunger Dice were really well designed and a smart innovation. That was like the first unique thing that's come out of Vampire the Masquerade in 30 years, which is true. And so that was actually something that other games would kind of steal from Vampire. It's not a completely novel concept, Hunger Dice. There are other games that like swap in dice or whatever. But what Hunger Dice do on a narrative level, just not a mechanical level, is very smart. All right? Like this whole like risk and reward mechanic that Hunger Dice did. Because Hunger Dice, in a sense, when you're doing those rouse checks, you're betting. And then they're fucking you for the rest of the game. Right? Yeah, stress dice, exactly. So, right, Alien with Free League. Free League, yet again, Swedish role-playing company, but they only do role-playing games, so they take it very seriously. The role-playing games isn't like their side hustle. So they attack role-playing games like Swedes should attack the role-playing games, in that they have like a crack team and they playtest shit to forever, and they make just incredible like highline shit. So Free League, great company. Aliens, a very good game. I just picked up. Actually, I got Vassin. Probably pronouncing that wrong. I got Invincible there. They both look fucking incredible. And I know they're gonna have interesting ways of doing stuff. So yeah, Stress Die is like kind of got incorporated into Alien, and it's basically fucking Hunger Dice. And that hasn't happened in 30 years. Like the last time somebody stole shit from Vampire was like first edition. The Humanity system got stolen by a bunch of different games. That kind of like morality on a tracker that seems kind of like dated now was a pretty novel concept. Like I think even like Shadowrun. No, not Shadowrun. Anyway, doesn't matter. I'll get off topic if I go down that road. So yeah, Hunger Dice, crazy thing to remove in my opinion. I kind of have a concept of like the beast nature mechanic, and it really doesn't play with the Hunger Dice mechanic in any way. I can't really comment on the beast nature thing because I haven't read it in enough detail to make an informed opinion. I love the matured discipline concept. I like that buying powers. You can now buy powers kind of like ad hoc, or what's it called when you just pick off the menu? I don't know what that's called. So you can pick powers just right a la carte. There we go. Thank you very much, Vocalize. Oh my god, I'm getting fucking old. So you can buy powers a la carte now. So you can basically, at least with your clan disciplines, every time you buy a level of your clan discipline, every time you buy a dot, you can pick a power that level of that dot or lower. So once you fill up to level 5, So you could have a level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, level 5, or like any combination therein that makes sense. Once you've hit your level 5 dot cap, if you're a neonate, I believe it's a level 5 dot cap for neonate still. If you're a neonate, I think Ancilla is 6, but anyway, that's fine by me. Then you filled up all your 5 dots in potence, let's say you're a Bruja. You can now, for I forget what it is. It's pretty goddamn cheap. Oh yeah, the advancement system. That's another thing I like in V6. The advancement system is way better than V5. That's just all good. The advancement system in V6, it's just fundamentally better than the advancement system in V5. I would just steal it. Just steal it. Like, get a glue stick, cut it out of the playtest guide, and just glue it over the XP chart in your core book, your V5 core book. Your players will thank you. So let's see here. I think it's down here in advancement. Yeah, advancement. Here we go. Yeah, just this XP chart. Just steal it. Just steal it. Like merits are a flat cost. Clan traits are a flat cost. I'll talk about that in a second. As you can see, clan discipline times 5, non-clan discipline times 6. So there it is. Discipline power, and that's when you're just buying it a la carte, is powers dot rank times 2. Like, I mean, boom. Like, you took, whatever, I don't know what Potence 5 is going to be. They're not in this book. Like, you took Fist of Cain, but you also want Karate Chop of Lilith. Okay, now you can buy it. 10 experience points. Like, you've already bought up the level 5. So now you want another level 5? Okay, we're not going to charge you another 25 fucking experience points, because that's fucking crazy. So just 10 and you've got 2 level 5 powers? Okay, like, that's fucking great. And I believe in V6 you can't use the powers at the same time anyway, and most of the powers are basically like one-shot powers. Like, I think there might be a couple of powers that last longer than, like, just instantly, but most of the powers to be like, you activate it, they work, they turn off, kind of thing. So I'm livid about exponential XP costs for attributes and skills with the way you distribute dots at character creation. Yeah, I mean, I won't get into the character creation, but the character creation kind of takes a step back. That's actually another innovation of V5 that was only innovation for Vampire. Like, every other role-playing game had figured this out like 10 years ago when Vampire the Masquerade was in a deep torpor. But like, literally every other RPG game had already figured this out before. About point distribution character creation, which is, it's better to give people like a template or like a flat stat line for stuff than to give them flat points to buy the stats. Because what happens is people will min-max the stat buy to basically optimize their future XP buys later. So like, if you have dots or whatever, you're going to get one stat maxed, right? Even if all your other stats are going to be garbage. If you get that one stat max, you're going to save yourself, like, I think it's like, on average, it's like 15 experience points. Which in V5 is 15, could be 15 games. It's 1 experience point per game in V5, right? So that could be 15 games. In V6, where the max is 1 to 6 per section, which that's what I give out in V5, by the way, which is 1 to 6 per session. That's still like 2 to 3 games on average of XP you have to make up from non-optimized character creation at character start. And yeah, some people are going to be like, oh, that's min-maxing. Not everybody min-maxes, blah, blah, blah. Sure, that's true. But in most games where you're playing like a monster or a vampire, this is Vampire the Masquerade. Part of the game is power fantasy. This game, V6, explicitly says one of the things they're going for is power fantasy. So that min-maxing is kind of part of the power fantasy. So if you're making it so someone who... And it's supposed to be plug and play, good for new players. So that means someone who's got a little more experience is going to outpace someone who doesn't know what the fuck they're doing very quickly. And those lags really show up in play, and they can dishearten a player because the player is going to feel like, okay, I'm here for a power fantasy. Like, he punches shit like through walls. Like, I just saw him kick an armored truck through a wall. And he didn't break any blood sweat. No blood sweat. Okay? While I'm all about dominate, and nobody does what the fuck I say. Cause like I'm rolling 2-3 less dice than this dude. I have to give the story suggester like all these drama points to get anything done, and I don't want to do that. So it's a little bit of a problem there. I agree. I don't think it's a major problem, but definitely it's a real step back to kind of OG character creation. I would say from like 2nd edition Vampire the Masquerade, or I guess revised, because they really didn't mess with the character creation system so much. And I think Requiem also had that problem, now that I think of it. So it's really a problem that Vampire the Masquerade kind of always had until V5 basically solved it. And basically every other game before V5 had like solved it beforehand. V5 was just kind of getting with the times for something that was old hat for everybody else. So it's a little weird to see that step back there. I don't think it's a huge problem, but it's a little weird, and it'll kind of shit on some people's power fantasy because they will see themselves lag compared to other characters who had a more optimized build at character start. Yeah, Requiem, that's true. I think that's 2nd edition Requiem. I thought I thought 1st edition was Requiem was also exponential. I haven't played Requiem in a very long time. Yeah, 2E. Okay, yeah, 1st E had the same problem. So I'm pretty sure 1st E was exponential, but I think you're right because they changed a lot about 2E. They brought in lots of like conditions. Like basically 2E saw 4th edition Dungeons and Dragons. It's a funny thing to say. They saw 4th edition Dungeons and Dragons, and they saw all the conditions and tags and like all that stuff, and they basically stole all that, put in tilts, kind of streamlined character creation and all that. So it's kind of funny that 4th edition Dungeons and Dragons kind of has a legacy in Requiem, which is I just find amusing for some reason. But anyway, yeah, this experience chart, you can basically just steal it right now and put it in your V5 game. You can steal the awarding experience chart basically as well, and I think that's fine too. They took the flaw thing from Chronicles of Darkness, which I always thought was the best part of Chronicles of Darkness, which is if you take a flaw and you basically make it fuck you up, right? Like I remember the first time I played a Requiem game, one of my players had amnesia as a flaw, or like forgetful. No, they're like forgetful as a flaw, right? And he got this important piece of information and like this bad guy's name and all that stuff, and he like runs back to the coterie. He's the fucking Nosferatu, right? He like runs back to the coterie with the secret, right? And he's like, guys, I gotta tell you this important shit I found out. And he tells them like most of the important shit, and they're like, oh, okay. So like, who's this guy? Who do we have to find? What's his name? And he turns to me and he goes, I forget. And he like basically puts his hand out for an experience point, right? Like the whole table like groaned. They were so fucking mad at him. They had to role play that whole scene about the consequences to his character, about the fact that he basically just like, whoops. Like, but he got an experience point out of it. It was fucking incredible. It was great. So they brought that back for six in a not in the same fashion, but similar. I think that's great. Just more experience point per game, always good. What else? So basically the infinite powers, that's great. I think it's the way they implemented it here is fine. I think it's a little different with non-clans. Like it works in a kind of little more persnickety way with non-clans. Getting non-clan disciplines a little weirder with the way they reworked Blood Bond. Whatever. That's not really something I'm too concerned with. I think playtest could iron that out. And to be honest, that's the kind of thing where even if it's not great in the book, in play, we're not going to play it that way. Yeah, like in play, like I'm not going to punish people because they want a non-clan discipline and drink a little blood here and there, right? I'm not gonna turn it into a whole fucking thing because it's not a story element I usually am that interested in. Even if the book is like, after you drink like 3 times in 8 years, like you become a slave, like we're not gonna play that one. Right, non-clan disciplines are capped by ranks now, yeah, but I think it's like a level cap, right? It's like a dot cap, not a power cap, right? So I think if you're a neonate and you're learning fortitude out of clan, I think, yeah, so you can buy up to 3 dots. I think, yeah, you're capped at like 3 or something. You can buy up to 3 dots, but you can buy all the fucking powers you want as long as they're level 3 or less. So you can buy like 83 fucking fortitude powers as long as you never buy a 4th level fortitude power. So that's still fucking nuts. You just can never reach the higher levels of that power. Let's see. So I talk about that. I have it all written down in my thing here. Talk about predator types, hunger dice, yeah, the blood bond and vitae. So they kind of going a little old school with the blood bond, like the 3 drinks and you're fucked kind of thing. It seems that as long as you're drinking like the blood of like younger vampires, I think you've got like a month or something for it to wear off. So you basically have a month between sips from the same guy. You're usually safe. You're only getting that really low level bond. But like older vampires, if you drink once from like an older vampire, so if you're like depending on a Malwa, or I hope they get rid of that too. Holy shit. Oh, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, please, V6 developers, if you ever happen upon this video and actually get this far into it somehow, like Malwa, throw that away. I'm an Arab, and I give you permission to throw away that Arabic word from Vampire the Masquerade and just make it mentor again. Because that is a word that is like really kind of archaic. Like you would never say that like in a sentence about someone who is your mentor or like your teacher. Like you would say ustad. You would not say Malwa. Like Malwa has a whole other context, which is about like someone who holds money for you, you know? Like it's a whole other context about kind of non-traditional ways to move money from one place to another. Like that's a whole, that's where, like it has a whole other context and connotation about like basically, it's kind of like medieval money transfers, right? Where like I give a guy some money or something to hold of mine in like Cairo, so that I don't have to carry gold bricks to fucking Barcelona, okay? And then when I get to Barcelona, this guy's got a note from his friend in Cairo who's like, yo, Khaldoun from Algiers is coming into Barcelona. He gave me 4 fucking bricks of gold. Give him 4 bricks of gold when he gets to Barcelona. Right? Like, it has a whole connotation there, like, kind of like about it. It's like a whole system. It's not just a person, right? So the connotation is more like your fixer or your money lender, or like someone you trust to the level to hold your money, in a sense. It's less about an actual mentor or teacher. Like, if you wanted to use an Arabic word to mean, like, teacher, it would be ustad. It would not be mawla, all right? And I see where they got that word. All right, because this comes from this kind of side tangent about like European versus American Islamophobia. Okay, sorry, this is I see where this word came from, which is in European, like in America it's more Arab phobia, while in Europe it's more Muslim phobia, and they're kind of interchangeable, right? Like all Arabs are kind of Muslim coded here, and all Arabs are kind of Muslim coded in Europe, and all Muslims are kind of Arab coded in America, right? So in Europe, like I could see where they probably heard and got that word because it's going to be more common for those kind of like money transfers to happen in a non-traditional way. And so I'm sure they like heard it in the news or something and made it into the game, right? Like I actually know that word because I studied fucking money laundering professionally in undergrad and graduate school. As part of like my counterterrorism training. So in any case, definitely off topic. You use a different Arabic word if you like. Please return the mentor. There doesn't seem to be a Mawa or mentor equivalent in the backgrounds, now renamed resources. I mean, resources is kind of the traditional word for cash, money background in Vampire, so that would be a little weird to rename all like advantageous backgrounds as resources. That would be a little weird. That would be a little mind breaking. I feel for people who want to play Vampire the Masquerade, who played Vampire the Masquerade. It would be seem like a change for no purpose, other than to like antagonize their legacy player base. Yeah, I noticed that. I noticed that was the case. I mean, I assume most of this language is a placeholder in any case. I assume there's going to be something like Mentor. Mentor is such a classic Vampire the Masquerade feature, like an NPC you can count on that you put points into. It would be weird to remove that whole cloth as well. Even if there's maybe a different system to do it, like maybe you don't put dots in it or some shit. Yeah, and I noticed that like basically you kind of like break down like everything you own as dots, which is a little weird. Like I've got a van, that's 2 dots. I've got a guitar, that's 1 dot or something like that. Instead of the kind of because that was also a bit of an innovation at that time. Vampire the Masquerade didn't make this innovation, but that was an innovation happening in role-playing games, because traditionally in role-playing games you would have gold pieces or credits, right? And you would track your individual, like I have 3,000 credits, or I have 50 gold pieces. So it became kind of an innovation in other games that no, we're just going to abstract how much money you have access to on a regular basis. And that's where resources came from, and a whole bunch of other stuff. So it would be weird to kind of go back to like itemized lists of items by dots instead of kind of, I have resources 3, so that means I have like a pretty nice apartment, I have a dependable car that maybe is a little pricey looking, and I have like regular cash coming in. I can afford concerts and drugs. As opposed to, I have resources 1. Sometimes I get evicted. I have a shitty jalopy or a really old motorcycle, that kind of thing. Money is wealth instead of resources now. Okay, yeah, so I guess maybe I take a closer look at the character sheet. So like that all seems stuff that I could quibble with, but is it going to really change my opinion one way or the other? I would prefer they use the like legacy terms just for fan service on some level, and for ease of play for people coming from older editions. This new edition, the less you change terms, you don't have to, the better. Like there's no reason to rename money wealth or anything like that. You just keep it resources, and there's no reason to rename advantages resources. You just keep it advantages, or you call it merits or whatever, or backgrounds. That would be better too. Just because if I'm coming from V20, let's say, or if I'm coming from revised, or if I'm coming from V5, which most people will be coming from, right? Like it would be kind of stupid to put up those roadblocks and obstacles just because you feel like, oh, this describes this better by some infinitesimal marginal amount. Like what I'm getting for in these dots is more like wealth, less like resources, right? And that's fine. I can get that, but it doesn't really help. It does more harm than help you. Like you being clearer of your intentions of what you're trying to define is less important than players easing into your game when you're already making a very big ask of them, given how different the mechanical systems are. Like throwing up these kind of nomenclature roadblocks there's just no point. But that's really neither here nor there. The last 2 things I'll talk about before I fuck off is Vitae and clan traits. So I will say Vitae, I'm not really a big fan of bringing blood points back. Resource management sucks. I don't play role-playing games to track resources. I play board games to track resources. I play like fucking Command and Conquer and Dawn of War to track resources. I do not sit around a table with my friends or on a video screen to track chits or move pegs from a hole or any of that shit. Right? I really don't like that. It's not for me. I really like glass beads on some level. I think that's kind of cool. Like, okay, maybe I'll get some like glass blood beads, like red glass beads. That can make it maybe a little fun for me, but not what I've come into the game for. Not really a thing that I think adds much to the game. Especially replacing hunger, which was novel, interesting, kind of ingenious on a both mechanical level and a narrative level, on the way it drove play and characterization. Where my hunger really like I got for 3 hunger dice. I know what that means. I got 5. You know, it's abstract but also concrete because it can only go from 0 to 5, right? While Vitae is now a lot of different things. The Vitae is your blood pool, it's your health level, and it's your hunger tracker, right? Because Vitae basically tells you how hungry you are now too. So on some levels that's kind of interesting because it's more cinematic on some level, right? Oops, I'm running a little low. Got to top off my blood tank and get a little sip from the rando ooh woo. Okay, I didn't say that. I was reading that, but that's not entirely wrong. Like what people ran into as a problem with blood points in the past was that because there was no like gambling mechanic for hunger, since every time you used the power you lost a blood point, right? You knew that if you were going into a fight, you didn't want to get in there with 75% of your blood pool, 60% of your blood pool, because every time you used a power, it was going to use blood. There was no risk. Like what Hunger Dice introduced and the Rouse checks introduced that made it really interesting and removed the let's kill some dudes to top off our blood pool gameplay that plagued Vampire the Masquerade, kind of churned it into the Katana and Trenchcoat edgelord game, was the Hunger Dice. Like you were risking it. When you use the discipline, you might not get hungry, right? You could really push it. If you go into a fight with 1-2 Hunger Dice, you could potentially use like a whole fuck ton of powers, 3-4 powers without getting a single hunger die in the whole thing. It's very possible, especially if you have some blood potency and you're using low level powers. Very possible you're not going to get any hunger. So why risk the Masquerade or your fucking storyteller being an asshole, killing some mortals just to like get rid of 1 or 2 hunger dice? So now with the blood pool kind of returned, people are going to return to that gameplay. It's like, oh, this is a risky sounding situation. I'm down 3-4 Vitae. Let me, hide in this alley. And it kind of distracted from play because people were constantly feeding, just like nonstop. Like in V5, people maybe have 1 or 2 feeding scenes per session, I'd say, is the average I've seen. If that. Sometimes you can have a session with no feeding scenes. It's rare. It doesn't really happen that often, but it can happen. If just like the timing is right and there's not much combat or much discipline usage. People just depending on their skills and role play to get them through. Or if it's like one long night and nobody sleeps. Right, yeah. Some people, they play a session and they, like, I tend to go through multiple nights per session. Like, I tend to, when I run Vampire, even if I'm only running 4-6 hours, I will tend to run the clock. I'll be like, okay, sun's coming up, that kind of thing. And so I will tend to run 3-4 nights in a session. So there will be feeding scenes. Only when something is a little weird or there's like a intense role playing happen that I don't want to interrupt, and I'll let it run longer than I would usually. Are we only going to have 1 night in a session? Yes, I do a rouse check for each night passed, all within the game session. Correct. Yeah. Which I think is the way you're supposed to do it. When you wake, you rouse check. But I don't do an initial rouse check when we come to the table, as par for course, unless the game ended with them going to sleep, which is what I shoot for. So I always shoot for the game session ending with the characters returning to the haven and going to sleep. I shoot for that. It doesn't always happen. So I only do game session start rouse check if they're actually rousing, if they're actually coming out of day sleep. I think that was the question you were asking on some level, Vocalize. So that's kind of the issue I have with Vitae, I guess, is that you're combining health levels, blood pool, and hunger tracker. So now you're kind of combining everything into this one stat that people are going to want to optimize. And because of that, it makes stamina a really important stat, which is kind of funny because stamina basically has kind of been a dump stat for a very long time, I would say. So suddenly stamina becomes very important because as you can see here, your Vitae maximum is 10 plus your stamina. So like the difference between 1 to 5 stamina is now very big. It's kind of huge. A little, yeah, mostly because I have one night across 2 sessions. I've rarely had more than 2 nights in a single session for my games. Yeah, it depends on how you're running your games. I would say my Vampire the Masquerade games, unless it's this, like they're kind of the non-Sabbat games, are usually very investigative. They kind of run like Call of Cthulhu on some level is usually how I run my Vampire the Masquerade games when I'm not running Sabbat. So there's a lot of like interactions they have to wait to have, or there are things that they have to investigate or research or hand off to other people who have to like get back to them. And they have to kind of play the court game, and that usually means like waiting on other people to give you the time of day. Oh, I'm sorry, time of night. In a Sabbat game, usually there'll be a lot more role play focused, and the characters will kind of drive the play. They have things they want to do, and they're going to do them now. They're not gonna, there's not a lot of bureaucracy that they have to deal with. So they're going to move at their own pace. And so a Sabbat game, usually when I run Sabbat, those sessions I've noticed, usually the session is a night, that kind of thing. Like they rarely get to 2-3 nights. But in other more traditional vampire games I run, I'll run 3-4 nights in one session, yeah. I kind of see the vision for the stamina with Vitae Pool and lots of vampire fiction. When vamps feed from someone, it immediately heals them. This kind of reinforces that trope. Still not entirely sold on it, though. Right, yeah, exactly. I agree with you completely in that this system is a lot more cinematic, right? So it's a lot more cinematic. It really plugs into that visual, like, oh, the vampire is feeding, and just the act of feeding, like, heals the bullet wounds. They kind of look more alive and flush. That kind of thing. It's not like the feeding itself like does something to heal and invigorate the vampire. As opposed to the kind of gamified mechanic where it's like, oh, they're refilling their blood pool and then they can spend their blood pool to heal themselves, right? So there's kind of a 2-step process in kind of traditional Vampire the Masquerade. You feed, it gives you blood, you spend the blood, you heal. Like in this, it's all kind of wrapped up in one. So cinematically, I get it completely. I think that's very interesting. I think I would actually like it if feeding healed you and satisfied your hunger. I think that would be pretty cool. Just as a natural vampiric trait that each each hunger that was reduced also healed like a lethal wound, basically. I think that would be pretty cool. If reducing hunger, just the act of reducing hunger healed lethal wounds, I think that would be neat. It would also reduce feeding scenes, and it would be more cinematic, right? And less gamified. There would be less of, oh, well, I fed, now let me make a bunch of rouse checks to heal. Like you roll the dice, right? It would be cool if that was combined into the one, and that's how I would solve that to keep it cinematic, I guess. If I wanted to keep... hunger dice in the game, that kind of thing. And I could implement that in my V5 pretty easily. I think that's good. And one nice thing about this is that it made me think of it as in a cinematic way. And so I might change my like V5 like house rules to incorporate that on some level. And it also reduced feeding and like extra steps, which is also great. And it'll make anybody who plays Salubri in my game maybe a little mad because it'll make them less useful, but it is what it is. Um, so I get it. It makes hunger a little more finicky to track and maybe a little bit of more of a bitch for newer players since they've got to kind of have an understanding of how low their stamina health bar is and like what penalties that creates. That could kind of be solved on the sheet through visual clues, but that would be harder to do on some level just because the stamina bar increases depending upon your stamina rating. So I guess if you filled your stamina bar from left to right and left the right side blank, you could put the penalties on like the last. You could put a penalty at the end where there's no box. Then you could put a penalty that kind of like cubes, I think, the last 2 boxes, and then another penalty that like cubes the like last 4 boxes. So you could kind of graphically represent it on the sheet in an interesting way. And of course, if you're playing virtual tabletop, that could be incorporated onto the sheet to affect your dice virtually, of course. The back end of the virtual tabletop could do that for you. So it's not a huge problem, but not great for new players who often meet the game pencil to paper on a table. So I'm not a huge fan of the Vitae health system, other than just taking damage and healing damage, which I think are the cool cinematic aspects of it. Right? Like you're hurt and you get weaker, like the blood leaks out of you, whatever. Okay, like that's a pretty common vampire trope. That's more Interview with the Vampire style than Vampire the Masquerade style. Vampire the Masquerade style, traditionally, like you get shot with bullets or stabbed or whatever, and it's kind of a bloodless wound. Like the blood is like kind of in you, permeates you. It's not actually like flowing through you. It's kind of traditional way it's been explained in most Vampire the Masquerade lore. So like you get shot and it's a bloodless wound. People know you're fucked up because you're not bleeding all over the place. While in Interview with the Vampire, vampires get stabbed and shot and fucked up, and they like bleed like a fucking sieve because they've got like 83 fucking pints of blood in them from all the people they've been eating, and they just like flood out of all their wounds or whatever, and it's a big fucking mess, and they like get weak and all as the blood like leaves them. Like an Interview with the Vampire Lestat, there's several scenes of vampires basically getting bled, of like they're being wounded intentionally to make them lose blood, and thus weaken them. So it kind of plays into that, which isn't quite the way it has been traditionally explained in the past. And then of course you're spending your health bar. Which I've heard some people kind of describe as video gamey. I don't think that's the case. Like Bloodlines had a health bar and a blood bar, like they were separate. There were some attacks that fucked with your blood, but your health bar was separate from your blood bar. Though feeding did heal your health bar in Bloodlines, the first Bloodlines. So I don't really see spending your health bar as too video gamey. Maybe I'm old. I'm not playing new video games where that's more common. I don't find that too video gamey. I actually don't hate that. I don't hate spending health to do things. I think the price points are very very I don't know. Expensive is the wrong word. They're very dear. The price point is very dear, and so it's not really. I don't know if I would spend that much. Like some of the powers cost like 3 vitae or whatnot. That's really I would find that very expensive. I don't know what power I would use that would be worth that for me. And then the higher level powers I assume are even crazier. Like is the cost of misform going to be worth it? Is kind of that or if I'm wounded, will I be able to mistform? Like am I fucked? So my escape power kind of becomes useless because it's such a high level power that I basically have to be like near full health for it to be useful. So if someone gets the jump on me and like stabs me with the pull cue, I won't be able to mistform away because I'm already fucked up. I'm gonna like mistform myself in the torpor. So I think it kind of causes maybe some unintended consequences there. I don't hate it. I would have to see it in play. It could be interesting. My main complaint about it is the removal of hunger dice. I think hunger dice just did something really interesting mechanically and narratively. Um, and it became such an integral way of how I thought about Vampire the Masquerade that I really couldn't conceive of a system replacing it that's better. And this definitely isn't better than Hunger Dice. I guess that's my main complaint about it is that Hunger Dice is much better for this than this is, and what this is doing isn't doing what I want in the game. And I don't think it's going to help the power fantasy. Like if the focus is on the power fantasy, which isn't really my focus for Vampire the Masquerade, but okay. If the focus on the power fantasy, I don't think Vitae is going to help with the power fantasy because your health is your resource for enacting your powers. Right, yes. I understood what you mean, Vegawaz. This system isn't better than the Hunger Dice. Right. Well, the Hunger Dice is a very high bar. So if you're going to remove the Hunger Dice, you're going to have to have a very good reason for it. And if the reason is Vitae or the Beast Humanity system or whatever, I don't think it clears that bar, personally. So we'll see. We'll be play tested, all that. All right, the last thing I want to talk about, and bottom line, TLDR, I don't hate Vitae. I think it's interesting. I think it's kind of cool to spend health for whatever. I don't like the return of blood points, especially if it's replacing hunger, right? So I think if powers wounded you, I think that would be kind of interesting. All right, if they not only made you hungry but also wounded you, that could be cool, depending on the power. No problem with that. Combining hunger and vitae and combining hunger, health, blood pool all into one stat to replace hunger dice, I don't think is a good trade-off. Basically, is what I'd say. The last thing I'll talk about before I have to go, I'm already kind of running late. I will catch shit for that later, I think, but it's all right. The clans. So the clans, and we'll just stick with Bruja. So now the clans have traits. All right. Here they have neonate traits and Scylla traits, and they're clan focused. I think this is a great concept. This is very similar to some stuff I wrote for the original Vampires Player's Guide under Modifius that was never published because it was basically delayed for nothing to do with me. For other reasons, for business reasons, to the point where Modifius and Renegade basically switched off. So that it never came out because it was a Modifius book. They paid me a kill fee, whatever. I own all those words, so it was a big waste of my time. But it only partially wasted my, it only partially fucked with my money, and I get to keep the words and do whatever I want with them. So actually designs merits and flaws that were clan based for that book. They weren't a great fit for V5. They're very similar to what I see here. So when you hit with an armed attack or a light melee weapon attack, you add your dots and potence to the damage you deal. And the prereqs are neonate or stronger, at least 2 dots in potence. And I see that it's part of Bruja neonate traits, which is these traits are available for neonate or stronger Bruja to choose when creating or advancing their character. So you can buy these later, which I think is smart. All right. So I think it's very smart if you're going to do this, that it is something you can buy with experience. You don't have to buy in the character creation. I would say that this is really good. I like kind of passive traits for characters. If you're going to make disciplines more expensive, basically because you're spending your health bar to do it, if you're going to make disciplines more expensive, going to make them all active, kind of like bam, like instant effects that don't happen all scene long usually. Maybe the higher level ones do that, but most of the ones I saw here were basically like, you do this, like you punch really strong or some shit, or like you read everything on a USB drive. If they're going to be active, like you do this one-time thing, and they're going to be expensive because you're spending your health, then we should have access to lots of passive abilities. So I would say that for me, what I would do is I would give people, if you're going to do this, one, I'm a little iffy on them being so clan focused. All right, like I'm okay with some of them being clan focused. Like that first one, I honestly don't like. I don't like that Bruja basically have better potence than everybody else. I don't like that. I think everybody's potence should be as good as everybody else's potence. I don't have a problem with Bruja having certain advantages, like breaking shit or something like that, or using their strength or abilities that, situationally are very Bruja, right? It's like when breaking shit, like add your this to that or something like that, okay? Like, so Bruja are known to be destructive and violent. Maybe when frenzying something happens or whatever that's different than everybody else. All right, that's fine. But like your potence is better than everybody else's, I would not lock that into a clan. That's a trait I would keep. I would make it for all vampires. And that would be my main note for traits in general, is if you're going to have traits, clan lock ones that are very situational or thematically very Bruja. The broader ones, like prowess here, which is just straight up my potence is better than everybody else's, that should be just a vampire trait that anybody can buy if they have potence. And that's lots of stuff. See in the dark. Okay, see in the dark, which I think that's everybody's number one complaint when they make a vampire character is, why can't I see in the fucking dark? Like, what the fuck is going on? Like, why do I have to buy Auspex or Protean or, I guess, Animalism now to see in the dark? Like, I'm a fucking vampire. Like, the dark is all I got. Like I can't wait for the sun to come up, right? Do I get a flashlight when I become a vampire? Do I get a flashlight? Is that part of the process? Like, is that one of the sire types I can pick? Is sire with a flashlight? Well, obviously not, right? So I would have a vampire category, which is just like, vampire traits, where a vampire of any clan can buy them, right? And I would put stuff like prowess. I would put stuff like seeing in the dark, just bitch ass see in the dark. Not even like superior senses, just like in the dark, you can see, right? I would put that in the traits and all kinds of other stuff. Maybe not talking with animals. I might not put that in kind of basic vampire traits. Maybe some version of like bulletproofing and stuff like that. Just like lower level, for the most part, stuff. And then like maybe lock all the higher level stuff into the clans. Maybe. That's a little iffier. And also what would be cool is if Caitiff could have access to the clan traits somehow. That could be pretty cool. Maybe not the higher level ones, but maybe they can have access to the lower level clan traits. That would be pretty cool if like Caitiffs could basically grab Bruja traits, they could grab Ventru traits, they could grab whatever set I traits. And you could make that kind of interesting. You could be like, it could be maybe a random roll at character creation, what traits you have access to. Or you could make them based on discipline or something else, and it's like, okay, Bruja. Or you could buy them. Or if you taste Bruja blood, you have access to Bruja traits. That kind of thing. And so Caitiff become kind of the more... I actually wrote a merit in the Vampires Player's Guide. I forget what I originally named it. I think it's like Magpie something or whatever. Where basically if you're a Caitiff and you drink from someone, you can like borrow a discipline power from them. Or sorry, not borrow. You can mimic a discipline power that they have for the rest of the night. So you drink their blood, and for the rest of the night, you can mimic their discipline power. So maybe Caitiffs could do that. They could mimic fucking traits from other clans and stuff like that. That'd be pretty cool. I disagree about Caitiff. It conflicts with their theme that they are alone and truly clanless. Keeping them from purchasing that could be kind of their clan bane curse. I mean, that part about them getting clan traits. Well, okay, so that's interesting, vocalized. So I think it's actually kind of interesting. Like, I see your point, and I see where you're coming from. So from my point of view, I see it as competing interests and basically two drives competing against each other that basically reinforce things mechanically. So mechanically, they can buy all these like traits if they have access to the blood of these other clans, right? But they're caitiff and they're clanless and they're ostracized socially. So other clans don't want to associate with them. So their access to this other blood is severely limited unless that clan member is okay with basically taking the social heat from it. So it basically becomes two competing forces narratively. The caitiff's desire to be more powerful is competing against the fact that they're socially ostracized. So their access to the blood is limited. And so it's a mechanical effect that they have to compete against a narrative element to achieve. And then you could also have a social mechanical effect of hanging out with a caitiff, of course. That's a whole other thing. So I think part of the strength of caitiffs supposedly is their ability to learn any discipline, kind of like develop any discipline, that kind of thing. So they're kind of like they don't have the same limits as other vampires. Right. So, and I would even say if you wanted to make it really a bitch for them, they would basically have to perhaps the traits, they could only activate the traits the night they drank from the vampire, that kind of thing. The only problem there is the blood bond kind of gets precarious. So yeah, I would have to think about exactly how that would work. Or you could roll randomly to see how long the trait lasts. Perhaps they could borrow traits. So if they have to buy the traits, I would say the act of buying it and having it would be the same as buying a discipline. So when they drink from a Bruja, they can now buy potence and Bruja traits. Like they've got it locked in now. They've learned it. If it's a temporary thing, if they only get the traits temporarily, if they're mimicking a trait from someone else, then right, I would be like, okay, you drank from a Bruja, he has the prowess trait, so for the rest of the night, you get the prowess trait too. And that would be in addition to, of course, being able to buy Bruja clan disciplines. I think that could be a pretty cool thing. I mean, we'll see. I mean, it's kind of neat because in V5, one of the things we did to kind of differentiate caitiff, because that was actually one of our, that's one of the things we were instructed to do with the Vampires Player's Guide, is basically make caitiff interesting narratively and mechanically, and we had very few words to do it. And I was basically like, I'll do that. That sounds great. It sounds like a lot of fun. So one of the things I did was basically all the caitiff merits and flaws that are like caitiff specific, that like basically no other clan got access to, and that was basically like splitting the difference between regular vampires and thin bloods. Like, because thin bloods had all those cool fucking merits and flaws. So I was like, okay, well, they're caitiff. Let's give them cool merits and flaws like the fucking thin bloods have, that other vampires just, fuck you. You don't get anything like this. Well, thank you. Yeah, I like those a lot too. Some of them actually got churned into regular merits. Like someone mentioned check the trunk. And I think I had another one which was basically about you're constantly called on to do like odd jobs. And they felt those were more kind of like social merits that anybody could do as opposed to caitiff, so they got moved over to the regular merits. But those were originally envisioned as like caitiff merits to kind of like feed into the idea that these are like, that they're like mercenaries, that they're kind of like always prepared and that kind of thing, if you're playing that kind of caitiff. So basically all the merits and flaws became the more like esoteric, mystical, like blood power kind of things. So I love the clan traits. I think there's a lot to do with them. I would actually expand on this. I would make it so instead of clan traits, they're just fucking vampire traits that any vampire could get. You could even make sect-specific ones. You could have like Sabbat traits, Camarilla traits, Anarch traits, Autarchist traits. You could really go fucking hog wild with them. I wouldn't link them to disciplines. Like, these are exclusively linked to disciplines. Not all of them are, but the ones I'm showing you here are. I think Gangrel. Yeah, so Gangrel has Feral Whispers. That is linked to animalism, but I don't think that's necessary. I don't know if I would link them to specific disciplines. Maybe. maybe. I would have to see how they're written up, how the rest of them are written up. Yeah, here's one: Safety of the Earth, which is basically Gangrel and Silicon Earth meld. It looks like, I guess, and it has no prereqs. It's just have to be a neonate or stronger. Gangrel Earth meld is an ability you can do. I like that. That's great. I hope Zemese get that too. Some of them are duplicated. So I think vampires in general should have stuff like that, and then maybe you could do them for sects too. There's a lot that you can do with that. I would step away from the, Bruja are the best at potence because they have prowess and so on kind of stuff, and so on. Yeah. Yeah, Pharaoh Whispers, Gangrel, nah, so it seems like there's some crossover here and there. I think Safety of the Earth would be great for Gangrel, Zemese, maybe Ravnos, depending upon which way they go with Ravnos. I don't know what the plan is with Ravnos. I hope they come up with something interesting for Ravnos. I think the Black Hand playing the Sabbat, I think we had the best write-up for Ravnos. We called them the Clan of Nightmares. They steal dreams and nightmares, and they make them come real. They're not doing fucking David Copperfield light illusions or whatever, or card tricks. They're stealing dreams and nightmares and throwing them back in people's faces, or making tools or even passageways with them and stuff like that. Or grabbing monsters from the night world and feeding them blood so they physically manifest. That I think is great for Ravnos. I would go that direction. I think V5's kind of like where Stuntmen, Daredevil, Wanderer types was kind of weird, and kind of like a non-theme. And of course, don't go back to the bad old days of the Ravnos. That I beg you not to do that, of course. So I'm curious how it's gonna go. Yeah, I saw the Tellergy discipline for Ravnos was a thing, and I saw it was kind of like fate control and like luck and stuff like that, and like spirits of the land. So it also had a Zemese connection. So I thought that could be interesting, as long as it's not all, like I said, card tricks, duplicity, and like light illusions and stuff like that. Like, look what I got up my sleeve, and as I pick your pocket. Like, as long as they stay away from like that stuff, I think that's fine. Like, I do not want Ravnos to return to this kind of like, carny wanderers in like wooden vehicles kind of thing. Like, I don't think that's good. I think there's a lot to do with Ravnos that could be very interesting. Like, yeah, I think it's called, like, it's for Khaldoonism, right? So like Zemese, I think you go like on the high level, you can do the like Lord of the Manor, Dracula, like in the old castle, like surveying his land, and like it's all about hospitality, and he's kind of like almost like this feral, bestial noble, who has like a weird sense of like nobility and honor, but is also like exceedingly medievally like cruel and grasping. And like doesn't take slights, a real Doctor Doom type, right? And then you can go, more interesting, not more interesting, but in different ways down that ladder. Obviously the flesh crafting trope and all that. And then, Zemese can be very witchy. Like that's kind of the way I usually go with them. If I'm not going the kind of like Doctor Doom way, I go very witchy with them. Like very like, speaking with spirits and like shaping their body and their soul, or shaping their body to match their soul. I think the whole like kind of Circle the Crone vibe from Requiem fits the Zemese very well. Yeah, Telluric, it's like, yeah, relating to the earth and the currents of the land. It's very like Ordo Dracul, like ley lines kind of stuff is kind of what it sums up for me, which is of course Khaldun coded. Yeah, so that could be cool for, so Zemese could be interesting as long as they're not just body horror vampires, though. That's fine by me. I don't care, actually. I'll take it. If they're just body horror vampires, that's fine by me too. But I think there's a lot you can do with them other than just the body horror stuff. But I'll take it. If it's just the body horror stuff, that's fine. That meets my minimum expectations. I don't think they should have Dominate. That's just me. I don't think Zemese should have Dominate. I think giving them Dominate was something that uh, was kind of like imposed on us in V5 as well. Like I wanted to go back to the original disciplines. Like if we were going to give them proteum, that should have been auspex, animalism, proteum. I know why we did it on some level. Um, excuse me. Is we it like the auspex? It's because the amalgam got complicated when it became auspex. When it became like auspex protean or animalism protean. So like making it dominate protean kind of made it more exclusive to the Zemisei than any other combination. Um, but I mean, I argued that but everybody has dominate. Like literally, like there are like 9 fucking V5 clans with like dominate. So like making any amalgam that's like linked to dominate doesn't actually really make it that exclusive, unless you make the prime discipline necessary like fucking insane levels. But yeah, anyway, I look forward to seeing what they do with the Ravnos. I'm sure it could be, it could be pretty interesting with this telluric thing, as long as it's not too, stereotypical. I guess I don't want to say racist, but stereotypical. Like the Ravnos, I don't know particular love for the Ravnos. I have no particular knowledge of like the cultures that were appropriated. Like no special knowledge other than what you can just find out by reading of those cultures or connection to those cultures that were appropriated to make the Ravnos. For me, my main issue with getting the Ravnos wrong is that it was done so poorly in the past that I feel, as someone who writes for Vampire the Masquerade, World of Darkness in the past, I feel that if I was to write the Ravnos, I would feel a responsibility to not do those things, I guess, is the way I feel. I feel the Ravnos, like, basically, back in the day, people gave them a lot of shit for all the racist stuff that was being incorporated in the Ravnos, and the solution was to basically, genocide them in the game, right? The solution was, oh, everybody's complaining about Ravnos? Okay, well, they're all dead now. Like, how do you like that? It was, like, the bitchiest, most, like, incel ST solution in the lore you could think of. It was like, oh, a laser from the sun hit them, haha. From a completely different splat, even. Like, it wasn't even other vampires who did it. So it was, like, really dirty, and it was extra gross because you're talking about a culture that actually experienced genocide, literally were murdered during the Nazi Holocaust in Europe in large numbers, are still like discriminated against to this day. So the fact that your like narrative solution to the issue of appropriation, stereotypes, and racism was to inflict a genocide on their like narrative equivalent that you'd appropriated was just peak. Like I couldn't even think. Like tone deaf doesn't even describe vocalize. It would be like, it's like if you created Jewish vampires, and people complained that they were too Jewish coded and you were just stealing stuff from them, and you weren't even letting like Jewish people write about them or whatever, and so your solution was to kill them all in camps or something, right? It's like, oh, well, these Jewish vampires were all murdered by werewolves through a laser, right? Werewolves with lasers killed them all. So problem solved. Stop complaining. And unfortunately, that really seems to be what happened. Like, it was really like they did not want to deal with them anymore and thought a great solution would be to kill them all. And so you see when I, make the switch up, when I replace the Romani with Jewish people, that you can see how fucked up that would be, right? So just keep that energy. Right? So it's the same thing with the Ravnos. Like, genociding that group of people, that, vampire that you were based on a stereotype of a people who were genocided, is fucked up. They don't have to be, Jewish or Christian or white or whatever for you to feel the fucked upness of it, I hope. And I hope that analogy clarified it on some level. So, looking forward to Ravnos. I think V5 kind of gave us a blank slate Ravnos as best they could with the companion and then the player's guide. I would have liked them to have more flavor and interest. As I said, we rewrote the Ravnos completely in the Black Hand playing the Sabbat to make them interesting and thematic and divorced from that. They do have a connection to the Romani people and other wanderers, travelers, and refugees, not just the Romani, because basically in our write-up traditionally, because of their powers and abilities, when they came around to cities and stuff, they would cause a stir. They would cause a ruckus because the people they fed on would they would basically produce like a plague of nightmares, right? Because of the people they fed on and what their powers do, and it would be very dangerous to the masquerade because usually people can't catch bad dreams and all that, and so they would basically be chased out of cities. And of course, they weren't part of the Camarilla or anything like that, so they didn't have any like political protection. So they'd be chased out of cities, and so they would have to wander from place to place, and they would feed on the people they found on the road, travelers, wanderers, refugees, and they became connected to those communities and cultures, not because they were of them, but because they were like feeding off of them, using them, exploiting them. So I thought it was a better take. I don't know. You can tell me. But I hope they take the same care and think about Ravnos when they're writing them in the future for this new edition. All right, so that's everything I have. I took way too long streaming. That's okay. But I had a lot to get through. I haven't finished reading it. I have high hopes for the playtest. I think all the feedback you can give, the better. That's that you guys didn't keep me. I kept me. I had a lot to say. I think there's a lot to be hopeful for. There's definitely some rough spots that need to be smoothed out and worked over. I think some of the complaints are a little overblown, but I have definitely heard some very good and constructive critiques as well. And I hope that all gets fleshed out and ironed out for where Vampire the Masquerade should be, right? Like, Vampire the Masquerade is not an indie game, in a sense, right? It's one of the big games. Like, I know it doesn't have the following or anything like that it used to have back in the day, where it was seriously eclipsing Dungeons and Dragons. Like, I don't know if you guys understand that. Like, when I worked in a game store out of high school, Vampire was a bigger game than D&D. Like, D&D was dead. Like, TSR was like a bankrupt, failing company. Right? They got bought out by Magic the Gathering people. It was a scandal. It was a scandal that this fucking card game was gonna buy out like TSR, the like premier like original OG RPG company, right? It was a huge fucking scandal in the gaming community, I guess, which is not a big or impressive or community that anybody gives a fuck about. But anyway, it was kind of a scandal. They bought them. They obviously did much better with it than TSR ever did with it. But there was a period in the 90s where Vampire just in my store, D&D didn't sell shit. Like you heard it was ready to surpass D&D in the 90s. Yeah, definitely. Like, in my store, we had like 2 fucking shelves in the center of the store that was all WoD. Like, one side was all Vampire, and one side was like half Werewolf and all the other games, right? Like, it sold like fucking hotcakes. It was crazy. Like D&D, we like put that in a corner. Like, nobody wanted that shit. That was for like old people, right? It wasn't even for kids, right? It was for old people. It was not a game anybody who could walk without a cane into the store would want to play. And this is in the 90s, right? So that's just like, so when I say it's not an indie game, that's not any shade to like the design philosophy of this version. What I mean is that it's one of the big name games, right? And it's fallen on hard times because it was sold to people who should have never owned it in Iceland, and then there was a financial crisis. So they were going to build like this MMO and all this stuff. And then there was the financial crisis, and Iceland was like leveraged up to its fucking eyeballs in the real estate financial crisis all over the world, and like the whole country went fucking bankrupt, along with CCP. They didn't go bankrupt, but they got fucked. And so they didn't even sell Vampire the Masquerade for parts. They just put it on a shelf. They like fired a bunch of people. Anybody of quality who was working on the Vampire MMO got moved over to Dust, the like failed Eve ground combat game. And basically anybody who was White Wolf affiliated slowly but surely, like, went unemployed. And eventually it got bought out by Paradox, as we all know, and that's why Vampire kind of exists again. But it was basically asleep, dead. Only Onyx Path was kind of allowed to continue with Chronicles of Darkness on like some kind of like side deal. But it was pretty crazy. So what I mean is that this is an IP where there's like very high expectations from it, because it is basically mentioned in the same breath as Dungeons and Dragons, still to this day for some reason, even though Dungeons and Dragons, like, obviously that's a fight that D&D won a very long time ago. But it didn't have to be that way, and people don't expect it to be that way. And Vampire the Masquerade is not like a ash can game, right? It's not like some kid in his basement, or like I'm kickstarting this like great idea my DM had or whatever. It's a game with like a 30-year legacy, an IP that like millions of people know and like, play to this day. It has like some clout and some credibility, so there's a certain expectation from those games. So we'll have to see, how it comes up. And unfortunately, the downside of that is that there's probably less enthusiasm in the WoD community for experimentation. Like, they expect to be presented with a AAA polished game from the jump, right? Like, Dungeons and Dragons doesn't really do playtests. Like, they don't do public playtests and that kind of stuff, right? They don't do anything like that, because they have the cash and resources to basically polish things to a mere sheen in-house, right? Because they have all this fucking talent. Like, they have benches of talent. They have like rows of talent. Like, they've got an A team, a B team, and a C team of talent. And if that's not enough, they've got the money, resources, clout to basically reach out to second and third party teams and make shit happen. Like, if you've seen the new Ravenloft book, The Horrors Within, look at the credits page, right? That's not written by the core D&D team, right? And it's an incredible book. Like, it's a book that's way higher quality than, some D&D books, I'd say, in the past, right? But it's technically not written by the core D&D team. So with Vampire, I feel like the fan base is expecting that. They're expecting to be presented with a polished game right off the bat. They're not expecting to they're not expecting an Ashcan preview. They're not expecting like a zine. And all that stuff. Like, even if you go back to V5, okay, V5 had a notoriously flawed alpha playtest. What's it called? Like Rusted Veins or something like that. Where there was just some some like shoot yourself in the dick moments there, right? Like, there was a vampire who was basically, I don't want to be crass, but was basically, he fed on children, right? So it wasn't great. Like, some people don't want to play that in your play test, all right? And there are other things in that, like there was built-in PvP in that playtest with like player on player, like murder and diablerie. That, maybe don't playtest that with your alpha off the gate. Just a suggestion. Don't make players eat other players in your playtest. But so even that, with a notoriously flawed alpha, was very polished comparatively. Like, it was like written in full sentences and like, not what you expect from an alpha playtest, right? Alpha playtest is pretty messy, right? Like, even this V6 playtest is not as messy as most alpha playtests you see. But that's not what people kind of expect from something like Vampire the Masquerade, White Wolf. They expect something polished, high quality, because D&D and other large companies like that have like set that expectation. But that's not really the White Wolf we have today. Like the White Wolf we have today, like I met some of the members of the team. Like I said, very dedicated. These are players, they're gamers, and not just like, I don't want to say lower people, but not just like the creatives and design people, right? Even the like top people, like I met Jess. These are real vampire players. They're part of the community, right? They're not like outsiders who've come from nowhere. Diago famously like learned how to like read English or speak English by playing Dark Ages vampires or something. I don't know if that's an apocryphal story, but that's a great fucking story. So they're real people in our community and all that. But they're literally at Gen Con, I think there were 5 or 6 of them. When I look at the Paradox website to see who's on the White Wolf team, it's less than 10 people, right? That's like less people than edit a D&D book. Like if you open the D&D credits page, you're going to see like 5 or 6 editors. You're going to see like 4 people who work on marketing and like franchising, right? So basically you're talking about like a team of less than a dozen people who are going to have to build V6 in a company that doesn't do RPG games. So I'm willing to give them a lot of leeway, and I'm willing to help them with the playtest a lot. Okay? Because not because they need it or anything, but because it's quite clear that this is not the like White Wolf of like the 90s or anything like that. But those are kind of the expectations that are being set. So I would say do the playtest. Go to their website, give them a lot of feedback, and if they need help or whatever, be polite and like offer help that isn't extractive or exploitative. And that's all I could say about it, to keep it as positive and as I can, and hopeful, But yeah, thanks so much for your time. I've been here way too long, but I appreciate so many people stopping in. And I'll post this on YouTube. By the Black Hand playing the Sabbat, of course. Why not? I'm sure I can make a V6 compatible version if I have to. But I don't think I will. So we'll see. All right. Praise King.